Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sanova and you are watching A News. Let's see the top stories shaping our world. The announcement of the Gaza peace plan by US President Donald Trump and Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu sparks global reactions. Europe boosts security measures in Copenhagen ahead of summits amid drone threats. And President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will address the top U.S. military officials at a base in Virginia. U.S. President Donald Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House, where the two leaders unveiled a Gaza peace proposal and discussed wider regional issues, from trade to the Abraham Accords.
President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met at the White House on Monday for high-stakes talks on Gaza. Afterward, the two leaders held a joint press briefing, with Trump outlining his US-backed peace plan and Netanyahu offering support.
So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East, and let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
The 20-point proposal includes a ceasefire, hostage releases, Hamas disarmament, a phased Israeli withdrawal, and a transitional government under international oversight. Trump called it a chance to open a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the region.
But if accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. So the hostages are coming back, and I hate even saying this from the standpoint, doesn't sound right, but it is so important to the parents. The bodies of the young men, I believe in almost all cases, the young men are coming back immediately. But the people
Netanyahu warned that Israel would act alone if Hamas rejects the peace plan, but called the proposal a realistic path for Gaza and a chance to strengthen the Abraham Accords.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done.
He also addressed the fallout from Israel's unprecedented strike in Doha earlier this month, which killed a Qatari citizen and sparked global condemnation. Netanyahu conveyed his regret in a joint call with US President Donald Trump to Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jassim Al Thani, stressing that Israel's target was Hamas leaders, not civilians.
And who knows, maybe even Iran can get in there. I hope. We expect.
During the talks, Trump also raised the Abraham Accords, the 2020 agreements that normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states, starting with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. He went further, suggesting that even Iran could one day join the framework. If realized, such a move would mark a dramatic shift, easing one of the Middle East's most entrenched rivalries after Israel and Iran fought a 12-day war earlier this year. The White House plan aims to end hostilities immediately, ensure the safe return of all hostages, and to ensure a long-term security in the region.
The U.S. brokered Gaza plan is already making waves beyond Washington. Many see it as a step toward peace in the region, and some are hopeful it could have an even broader global impact.
President Trump,
The announcement of the Gaza peace plan by US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday has sparked a wide range of reactions from global leaders and groups. Some Western leaders have expressed hope. French President Emmanuel Macron, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer each posted on social media, urging both Hamas and Israel to consider the proposal seriously. They stressed the need for Hamas to accept the plan and called on Israel to stay engaged in the peace process. Meanwhile, Hamas's negotiation team has received the plan through Qatar and Egypt. However, the group has not yet issued any official response. In a rare show of unity, several key Arab and Muslim majority countries, including Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, Indonesia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, issued a joint statement welcoming the initiative. Their foreign ministries expressed readiness to work with the US toward implementing the plan. Trump's special envoy to Middle East, Stephen Witkoff, emphasized the broader impact of the proposal. Speaking to Fox News, he said the successful implementation of the plan could not only bring peace to Gaza, but also help stabilize other parts of the Middle East and even contribute to ending the war in Ukraine.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are expected to meet with top U.S. military generals from around the world on Tuesday. The meeting, called by Hegseth, will be held in Virginia and could bring as many as 1,000 generals. Trump has said the gathering will address the military's performance and strengthen a sense of loyalty. Sweden is sending anti-drone systems and radar equipment to Denmark after a wave of drone incursions disrupted air traffic. The move comes just days before major European summits in Copenhagen this week.
Security has tightened in Copenhagen ahead of European summits this week, with France, Germany and Sweden sending extra military personnel and anti-drone systems to Denmark. Several Danish airports had to temporarily close after drone incursions disrupted air traffic in recent weeks, with Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen describing the incidents as a hybrid attack on her nation. On Sunday, Denmark banned civilian drone flights after drones were also spotted near several military sites overnight. Now Sweden is sending anti-drone capabilities, including counter-unmanned aircraft system and radar systems.
Around 1 week ago, the first indications emerged that drones were blocking airports in Copenhagen. I was in contact with Mette Frederiksen, the Danish Prime Minister. This came immediately after Poland had confirmed drone attacks, Russian ones, and then airspace violations in Estonia and Romania. So we took this very seriously.
European nations have linked the drone activity to suspected Russian incursions. Estonia reported Russian fighter jets violating its airspace earlier this month, while Poland and Romania confirmed drone incidents as well. Germany has sent a frigate, the FGS Hamburg, which has docked in Copenhagen to help monitor airspace. Copenhagen will host European Union leaders on Wednesday, followed by a summit of the 47-member European political community on Thursday.
U.S. President Donald Trump has renewed his threat to impose a 100% tariff on films produced overseas. The move is creating uncertainty for studios that depend on international co-productions.
The film industry is bracing for major changes after US President Donald Trump announced plans to impose 100% tariffs on movies not made in the United States. Trump's proposal comes amid accusations that other countries are stealing the US movie business. He first floated the idea of a movie tariff in May, but offered few specifics, leaving entertainment executives unsure whether it would target certain countries or all imports. After that announcement, a coalition of American film unions and guilds sent a letter to Trump urging him to support tax incentives for domestic film production in a reconciliation package being drafted in Congress, hoping to bring more film and television projects back to the United States. Hollywood has increasingly relied on overseas production hubs such as Canada, the UK and Australia, where tax incentives have attracted big-budget productions ranging from superhero franchises to streaming dramas. Industry executives warn that a broad tariff could affect thousands of US workers employed on overseas shoots, from visual effects teams to production crews, whose work is often spread across multiple countries. According to the Motion Picture Association, the American film industry posted a $15.3 billion trade surplus in 2023, backed by $22.6 billion in exports to international markets. The proposed tariffs signal Trump's willingness to extend protectionist trade policies into cultural industries, creating uncertainty for studios that rely on cross-border co-productions and international box office revenue.
In Madagascar, thousands have protested for a third day over power and water cuts. The unrest has prompted President Andry Rajoelina to dissolve the government.
After days of deadly youth-led protests over water and power cuts, Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina has dissolved his government. Police and thousands of demonstrators in the capital clashed during a third day of unrest on Monday, with many protesters calling for the president's resignation. Rajoelina acknowledged public concern but gave no indication that he would step down.
Maybe we haven't met the needs you aspired to, or even listened to the cries and fears you experienced. Therefore, in accordance with Article 54 of the Constitution, I have today taken the decision to dismiss the Prime Minister and dissolve his government.
The current government is expected to serve on an interim basis until a new one is appointed. The demonstrations, inspired by Gen Z protests in Kenya and Nepal, are the largest Madagascar has seen in years and represent Rajoelina's most serious challenge since his 2023 re-election. A dusk-to-dawn curfew was imposed in the capital after reports of violence and looting, with police firing rubber bullets and tear gas to disperse crowds. According to the United Nations, at least 22 people have been killed and more than 100 injured, though the government has disputed those figures without providing its own.
Welcome back to A News. US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met at the White House on Monday, unveiling a 20-point US-backed peace plan aimed at ending the war in Gaza. The plan, which Israel has already agreed to, includes the creation of a board of peace led by President Donald Trump himself to oversee its implementation. Trump has made clear that Netanyahu will have Washington's full support if Hamas refuses to comply. European leaders have reacted swiftly. Germany's foreign minister called the plan a unique opportunity to end Gaza's suffering, while French President Emmanuel Macron insisted Hamas must release all hostages and accept the deal. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer urged all sides to work with the United States to bring the agreement into reality, and the European Council President echoed calls to seize the moment for peace. To discuss these developments, I'm joined from Tel Aviv by political analyst Tom Grass. Tom, thank you very much for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
Tom, how significant is this 20-point peace plan compared to previous U.S. initiatives in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
Well, it's definitely the most serious of the ones during the present two-year war between Israel and Hamas, because it looks to an end game. It looks to post-war scenarios. I'm not sure I would say it's as significant yet as agreements in the past, like the Oslo peace agreement between Israel and the PLO in 1993, or the Camp David agreement, but it could yet turn in to some all-encompassing agreement way beyond Gaza that would also offer hope for the wider Middle East and indeed for the whole world, which is, let me just explain very briefly. I think it's good for Israel. Mm-hmm. It's good for Palestinians that want to live in peace, but not good for Hamas. It's good not just for the Arab world, but for the wider Muslim world, which is why other countries have welcomed it, including Indonesia, Pakistan, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, UAE, India. And it's bad for people on the far left, including people in university campuses in America and Europe who have been screaming for the river to the sea and trying to demonize Israel and throwing lots of fake accusations like genocide and famine and so on. And it's also bad for the far right in Israel that wants to annex the West Bank. But for anyone that's more moderate, I think it's a good plan, yes.
Tom, Israel has already agreed to the plan. From your perspective, why do you think Netanyahu signed on so quickly?
Well, I don't think it was so quick because I think essentially Netanyahu's getting most of the war goals he stated right at the beginning of the war, which is to get all the hostages back. They'll come back within 72 hours if Hamas agrees to the plan and honors it. Hamas will be disarmed, which is another one of Israel's war goals. And Gaza will be demilitarized so it doesn't threaten Israeli security anymore. Because remember, it's not just the present war from October 7th, 2023. There were about 4 or 5 previous attacks on Israel, smaller ones, in 2009, 2012, 2014, 2018, 2021, where Hamas also attacked Israel with rockets and other terrorism. So Israel wants Gaza to be demilitarized, and that is what this plan provides for. And it also provides to neither have Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority unless the Palestinian Authority seriously reforms itself and becomes a body interested in coexistence with Israel.
So the proposal gives Donald Trump a central role as head of the so-called Board of Peace. How do you interpret this unusual setup?
Well, I think that you need somebody who will oversee everything because there are bound to be disagreements, there are bound to be hiccups or problems, and really only someone like Trump can bang heads together. He can pick up the phone, for example, to people who are more sympathetic to, let's say, the remnants of Hamas, like the Qatari leadership or President Erdogan of Turkey or the Egyptians. And he can also pick up the phone to the Israeli leadership. So inevitably, there will be all kinds of problems down the road. And you need someone who can, bash heads together. And Trump, because he cajoles and threatens people with all kinds of stuff, whether it's, tariffs or whatever, withholding this or that, Trump will no doubt get involved when he needs to. I don't think he'll do any day-to-day supervision of a peace plan, but he'll be there buzzing around in the background, ready to step in if necessary.
So looking at Hamas, what are the chances it will even consider agreeing to this plan?
Well, I don't think Hamas will want to say yes, but Hamas's paymasters are Qatar, and it seems like Qatar have signed on. In fact, they've already welcomed it officially, the Qatari government. And I'm not sure Hamas are in a position to defy Qatar. And in fact, I've been arguing for 2 years that if the West had put a bit more pressure on Qatar, instead of accepting their very generous financial donations to every universities, political campaigns, sports events, and the like, the war could have stopped sooner because Qatar are the one party that could tell Hamas to stop the war. And I think that although Israel was criticized for striking the Hamas leadership in Qatar in an airstrike a couple of weeks ago, I think we've seen a change in position for the better from Qatar since then. And Qatar is telling Hamas, stop your war, it's now causing us more trouble than it's worth. We don't want to get involved directly, which is what happened when Israel did that airstrike on Hamas leadership in Qatar. And in fact, in the last few days, I've seen a noticeable difference in Al Jazeera, the mouthpiece of Qatar, have suddenly softened their position on Israel and are being less pro-Hamas. So, I think Israel's act, which was criticized at the time by Netanyahu on Qatar, have changed Qatari's position, and I think Qatar are the only people that can really pressure Hamas.
So Germany, France, the UK and the EU leadership have all welcomed the plan. How important is European endorsement at this stage?
it is important, and what's most important is they stop interfering and in effect save Hamas, which is what they've been doing by keep on calling for premature ceasefires and giving Hamas hope and giving the idea that, you know, they will recognize a Palestinian state without any conditions, with Hamas still in power. What the European leaders should have done is say we will consider a Palestinian state once Hamas releases hostages and gives up power. Instead, the Europeans have been prolonging the war by giving Hamas false hope that they can win the war, you know, giving them a diplomatic backup. So it is important that they have finally come on board with the kind of Trump American position. And the best thing the Europeans can do is to stop dividing the West and dividing the democracies and trying to undermine America and Israel and in effect supporting Hamas and allow this plan to take effect. So it's important that they have, come on board with it, yes.
Mr. Grass, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is one of the driving forces behind international pressure. Does this plan adequately address humanitarian concerns?
Well, yes, it's a fantastic hardship that many Gazans are going through. And yes, it does, of course, because the moment the fighting stops, and according to the plan, it will stop almost immediately if Hamas releases the hostages within 72 hours, the fighting will stop. And, you know, although lots of aid does go into Gaza, of course, it's difficult with distribution when there's an ongoing war going on, you know. So the moment the fighting stops, the moment Hamas agrees to effect surrender, Israel will also lay down its arms, and the humanitarian situation, of course, can improve greatly.
So what do you think? How might Palestinian leadership outside Hamas, particularly the Palestinian Authority, respond to the proposal?
Well, the Palestinian Authority have welcomed the proposal and endorsed it, which is refreshing. But we'll have to wait and see whether they actually will implement the reforms that Trump has set for the Palestinian Authority. And only if they do implement those reforms will they have a role to play in future in the governing of Gaza. And just to remind people, what Trump has requested of the Palestinian Authority is to stop payments to terrorists. You know, it has been paying financial rewards to the families of suicide bombers, large amounts of money. He's asked them to recognize the state of Israel as a Jewish state. In other words, not to have two states, both of which will be Arab states, but have one state primarily Jewish and one state primarily Arab. That's what they have to recognize. Also to disarm terror organizations within the West Bank, and also to reform its education system. So if the Palestinian Authority does all that, then they will have a role to play. And indeed, I think the vast majority of Israelis will feel comfortable with the Palestinian Authority, just like the vast majority of Israelis feel comfortable with peace with Egypt and Bahrain and Morocco and the United Arab Emirates and others that do not threaten Israel's existence. If the PA will reform and become a partner for peace, then I think there can be peace between Israel and Palestinians.
So finally, if Hamas rejects the plan, what do you think the immediate consequences will be, both on the ground in Gaza and diplomatically?
Well, I think it's over for Hamas. If they reject it, Trump has made clear, and presumably all those parties backing this deal have also gone along with the idea that Trump said that Israel can finish off Hamas militarily, which it's close to doing. And the fact that most of the Arab world and other Muslim countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, and European countries have all endorsed this plan is giving Israel permission to finish off Hamas militarily. And it's telling Hamas, you no longer have our diplomatic backs. And that includes Qatar telling Hamas that. So if Hamas reject this, then, I think they will crumble quickly. I think the only reason this war has gone on so long is not because Hamas are so strong militarily, but because they've been given diplomatic and other hope by protesters in the West, by Qatar, by certain European leaders like President Macron, if they stop giving Hamas hope, then I think they will surrender. And I don't mean surrender being a bad thing for the Palestinians. It is a good thing for the people of Gaza if Hamas surrender, because then we can start building peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
Tom Gross, thank you very much for your insights and analysis. We greatly appreciate your time and perspective on this important issue. Thanks a lot.
Happy to be with you. Thank you.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. Day 2 at the Emerge Summit is underway in Baku, with tech leaders and innovators exploring the latest trends. Our Gülçin Kocalieva has more from the event.
The energy at the Emerge Summit is building as Day 2 unfolds here in Baku. Innovators, investors and tech leaders are exploring new trends and showcasing projects shaping the region's digital future. Today's agenda includes a keynote by Mark Randolph, co-founder of Netflix, who shares the fascinating story behind the birth of Netflix. The in-battle startup competition continues, giving new companies a chance to pitch their solutions directly to the investors, with an award ceremony set to follow. I'm Gülçin Kocalieva, with İlkin Mehdiyev and Khalid Aliyev for A News.
The Organization of Turkic States closely monitors regional and global shifts in international relations in order to adapt to them. Prior to the main summit in October, advisory bodies met in Baku and once again emphasized the need for strategic unity.
Ahead of the Organization of Turkic States summit in October, think tanks from member states gathered in Baku on Monday. The conference, titled OTS as a Regional Actor During Global Uncertainty, brought together numerous regional experts who shared their views on the organization's response to current international developments.
At this high-level conference, members of the Organization of Turkic States are discussing political, economic and cultural cooperation. The goal is to address regional challenges and to enhance organization influence on the global stage.
Growing cooperation among Turkic states is shifting the geopolitical and economic balance in the region toward member and observer countries. External powers now have to engage with a unified bloc instead of individual states. That is according to chairman of the Azerbaijani Center of Analysis of International Relations, Farid Shafiev.
The last 2 years against Turkic unity, against the Organization of Turkic States, we see disinformation campaign, especially now in the context of the events in the Middle East. We see a coordinated campaign against Azerbaijan. So this platform, Organization of Turkic States, the think tank form of Organization of Turkic States, it allows us to discuss those issues, to prepare responses. There are different momentum in the history when we sometimes should show flexibility to certain issues, and that should be understandable, taking into account that most of the Turkic states, they live in very complex geopolitical environment.
The organization's Deputy Secretary General Ömer Kocaman marked that relations among the Turkic states rooted in shared history, language, culture and traditions hold significant strategic value and potential. He also noted that the OTS's upcoming projects offer great promise for the region.
In the period ahead, the OTS has significant programs and projects outlined in its roadmap. Under the organization's 2022 to 2026 strategy, we are implementing key initiatives in areas such as the economy and transportation. We are also carrying out important programs across the fields like tourism, media and youth. We are now also encountering new projects, ideas and perspectives. This plays a vital role in renewing ourselves and adapting to the changing conditions of the world.
During the panel discussion, speakers also highlighted the positive developments in the region driven by the normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia. In particular, they emphasized that these peace negotiations could stimulate the development of transport and energy links across the region. The growing significance of the Zangezur corridor was also noted, with this route being viewed as a common corridor that contributes to peace and stability among the Turkic states.
Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan are deepening media cooperation. Baku is hosting the second media forum on digital transformation and media. Our Chimnaz Shahlar has more from the venue.
Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan explore new avenues for media. For that reason, Baku is hosting second Azerbaijan-Uzbekistan Media Forum. The topic of the forum is digital transformation and media, which reflects growing recognition of media's critical role in democracy, transparency and social trust. At the forum's opening ceremony, Ahmad Ismailov, the executive director of Media Development Agency of Azerbaijan, stressed that digital regulation, new technologies and shared standards will boost media developments in both countries. As a part of second Azerbaijan-Uzbekistan Media Forum, a panel on media partnership in digital age, joint initiatives for information security was held. The panel focused on media cooperation, information security, disinformation, and state media partnership. I'm Chimnaz Shahlar with Zeynel Abdin Hassanov, A-News.
Italian President Sergio Mattarella is expected to visit Baku today. The visit underscores the importance of bilateral relations and explores new opportunities for cooperation across multiple sectors.
Relations between Azerbaijan and Italy have strengthened and grown in recent years within industries such as energy, trade, investment and technology. These ties are vital not only for both economies, but also for regional and European energy stability, according to officials. President Sergio Mattarella's visit to Baku on Tuesday is expected to reaffirm those traditional ties and launch discussions on further projects in industrial, technological and infrastructure sectors. Italy is Azerbaijan's largest trading partner. From January to August this year, trade reached $8.3 billion. That's more than a quarter of Azerbaijan's foreign trade. Most exports are oil and petroleum products, with more than 9.1 million tons shipped to Italy, valued at $4.8 billion. That's an increase of 48% in volume and 22% in value compared with the same period last year. Energy remains central to the partnership. Italian companies, including Ansaldo Energia, have contributed to major Azerbaijani infrastructure projects, such as supplying gas turbines and generators for the Mingachevir 8th of November power plant. Azerbaijani gas is exported to 14 countries, with the TAP pipeline connecting the South Caucasus to Italy as a key route to Europe. It ensures stable supplies and enables further collaboration. Cooperation is also expanding into renewable energy, refining, logistics, infrastructure and technological innovation. Joint projects in biofuels, emissions reduction and scientific exchange are creating new avenues for the partnership. This relationship between the two countries offers Azerbaijan the opportunity to attract new investments and technologies. It also strengthens Italy's role as a reliable partner in the South Caucasus. The partnership demonstrates a strategic collaboration across various sectors, promoting long-term economic stability and global energy cooperation.
Uzbekistan remains one of the fastest developing countries in Europe and Central Asia. This is stated in the latest World Bank report, Development Prospects of the World Economy. However, risks are also significant for the country. Our correspondent Sevil Rajapova has more from Tashkent.
According to the EBRD's latest Regional Economic Prospects report, Uzbekistan will remain one of the fastest growing economies in Central Asia, with GDP projected to rise 6.7% in 2025. In the first half of this year alone, the economy expanded by 7.2%, driven by a 30% surge in exports, particularly gold and tourism revenues, which helped offset lower gas production. Remittance inflows and public investment programs also continue to support growth. Looking back, Uzbekistan's economy grew by 6.5% in 2024, with nominal GDP reaching around $115 billion. Growth in 2023 was 6%, while 2022 saw 5.5%, showing steady resilience despite global challenges. Growth is being fueled by several factors, including strong domestic demand supported by remittances from migrant workers, major investment and infrastructure projects that stimulate business activity, and rising exports of gold and services, such as tourism, which bring in vital foreign currency. However, risks are also significant. The EBRD warns of high dependence on remittances, vulnerability to commodity price swings, and exposure to external shocks from Russia and China. The World Bank also notes structural challenges, including the need for further reforms, productivity growth, and deeper economic diversification. Overall, while Uzbekistan's growth outlook remains strong, sustaining this momentum will depend on reducing external vulnerabilities and ensuring reforms translate into inclusive long-term development. It is Cyril Vajapo reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
The Taliban administration have imposed a nationwide communications blackout, plunging Afghanistan into near total isolation. Internet and telecom services affecting mobile networks and satellite TV were cut off across the country, with connectivity dropping to below 1% of usual levels on Monday, according to the global internet monitor NetBlocks. The move follows weeks of tightening restrictions. Earlier this month, authorities began severing fiber optic lines in several provinces. So far, the Taliban haven't provided any official explanation for the cuts. World-renowned photographer Steve McCurry has unveiled his latest exhibition, The Haunted Eye, making its world premiere in Istanbul. The show includes the Afghan girl portrait made famous 40 years ago on the front of the National Geographic magazine. World-renowned photographer Steve McCurry has premiered his new exhibition, The Haunted Eye, in Istanbul. The show features 25 of McCurry's career-defining photographs, including his iconic 1985 National Geographic cover portrait of the Afghan girl. There are also 160 other works which are being exhibited for the very first time. The expo has been organized by 212 Photography Istanbul with the support of Turkey's Culture and Tourism Ministry. It opened at the Tophaneyi Amire Culture and Arts Center, which is part of Mimar Sinan Fine Arts University and is one of the key events of the Turkey Culture Route Festival. McCurry, who traveled from the United States to attend the opening, said he was honored to present his work in such a historic venue. He expressed gratitude to the Turkish people, noting that this visit was especially meaningful because of the exhibition. McCurry has built one of the most extensive visual archives in contemporary photography, documenting diverse cultures and human stories. The Haunted Eye will remain open to visitors until the 19th of November. It's day 2 of the Baku Climate Action, and governments, officials, climate leaders and academic professors have gathered in the city to participate in this event. Nadia Jani has been there and sent us these from the venue.
We are halfway through day 2, and it's been great to hear so many speakers focus on the transition to green energy and the positive results it will bring. COP29 President Mukhtar Babayev gave an opening speech and made sure the audience were aware of Azerbaijan's energy roadmap for the future and the necessary building blocks needed to fight climate change. During the first session, guests received key information on ways their countries can action the climate agenda goals. Panel discussions focus on how to decarbonize and invest in new energy projects like solar and offshore wind initiatives, while also highlighting policy frameworks and renewable energy partnerships. The session also turned to advancing climate resilience through international collaboration, where the SOCA Vice President Afgan Isayev really pressed on the importance of global partnerships to explore possibilities. I'm Nadia Jani for A News here at Baku Climate Action Week.
Welcome back to A News. We are on day 2 of Baku Climate Action Week 2025, running from September 29th to October 3rd. Today, the spotlight is on the clean energy transition, a critical pillar in the global effort to achieve a sustainable future. Joining us live from Baku is Nargiz Mamadova, an expert in international relations at the STEM Center. Ms. Mamadova, thank you for being with us today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation.
Nargiz, can you give us an overview of the main objectives of Baku Climate Action Week 2025?
Yes, definitely. First of all, after COP29 that was successfully held in Baku, the negotiations were held in Baku. We know how were these discussions hard and long for many days. And Baku Climate Week actually matters a lot in case of, if we think in the vision of Azerbaijan, that still, even if the COP29 has ended, the environmental agenda is one of the priorities for Azerbaijan, as well as water management, clean energy, climate issues, and other related issues. And I think that Baku Climate Week is a great preparation for all stakeholders to the COP30 that will be in Brazil. And I think that all the new ideas that we will hear during these days will be also as a recommendation or as a direction for the COP30.
Nergis, in your opinion, what role can Azerbaijan play in driving regional clean energy initiatives?
Well, I think that Azerbaijan is now #1 clean energy or alternative energy producer in the South Caucasus. And I will say that in further, like in 5 or 10 years, Azerbaijan can be leader not only in the South Caucasus, but in the more broader region. And I think that clean energy we can call, if we think from the point of geopolitics, we can call it as an independent energy, because for clean energy, you just need your nature resources like sun or wind or anything that is not connected to oil, is not connected to the prices. But still, yes, we should admit that to produce clean energy, as a country, you should need a good infrastructure, and in this case, the projects of Masdar company or any other company which is now in Azerbaijan, and they are doing great job on the clean energy, on alternative energy. And now even in the let's say in international relations, we can talk about the geopolitics of clean energy. If before we talk about the energy like oil, gas, and it specters the relationship between countries, now we can say that the agenda on clean energy emphasized a new links between countries, even a new hubs of clean energy, of alternative energy. We can say about the signing memorandum on the sidelines of the COP29 between Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. And I think that this hub will in the future will be connected to the European Union via Turkey, for example, and can be a good source of clean energy from Asia to Europe.
Nergis Mammadova, thank you very much for talking to A News. We greatly appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
That's all for now. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned to A News for more.